Hi everyone, Harry here to talk about the never-ending saga of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Cast your mind back to March of 2025 and an eventful Saturday evening when many people were just transported from the U.S. to El Salvador and a kind of a hellhole prison, El Cicat. And Kilmar Abrego Garcia, in fact, had an order saying, whatever you do to him, don't send him to El Salvador. So the U.S., even though they denied it and bobbed and weaved forever, just screwed up and now eventually confessed that error that he should not have been taken away. But he was one of the people who were represented. We still don't even know if there were others who were sent down without proper orders, but Kilmar Abrego Garcia was. And more or less by happenstance, he became the face of the whole attack on the administration. You may recall that Senator Chris Van Hollen went down to try to visit him. He's got, does Abrego Garcia, kids here, including one with special needs to whom he's really the emotional link, at least as it's described, and the sort of human cost of the whole thing has been very poignant, but it hasn't in any way softened the hearts of the DOJ. And this was Pam Bondi at first, and you could see the DOJ dug in deeper on this guy, basically wanting to treat him harshly for his great sin of being taken away contrary to orders. He became the focus and the poster child for the whole thing, and Pam Bondi and others in the department were just hellbound to try to make life miserable for him. So it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, which confirmed that he had certain habeas rights. At first, the department said, we'll never bring him home. And then later, lo and behold, after they had been ordered to bring him home, they bring him home and file charges that are unsealed in the Middle District of Tennessee. And it's those charges that the latest appeal is about. So basically, they want to argue that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a trafficker in people who are here illegally, and there was a stop made by local police in Tennessee in 2022. There were people in the car. He said he was transporting them to work. They didn't have luggage, etc., and that it seemed suspicious, but then the state officers let him go. So that is the whole basis that Pam Bondi used for saying, okay, we got to bring him back. Guess what? Criminal charges for you in the Middle District of Tennessee, Abrego Garcia. And at that point, there's been this whole kind of tug of war and fairly confusing. And don't worry, I won't try to completely delineate it. Back and forth between, on the one hand, their efforts to deport him on the administrative channel without going through the criminal process, but also this criminal charge which they've brought, and he was able to get bail for. And then the district court said, I see a presumption of vindictiveness here because of the way things went down. And the government has not properly rebutted that presumption. There are these facts here that they haven't properly explained. So guess what? Dismissal of the criminal action. And all the time, the DOJ was trying to get him into the administrative channel and keep him from getting any bail, as they've done to potential deportee after potential deportee. But the judge in Maryland gave him bail. Anyway, they've been really focused on him in every possible way. But the district court in the Middle District of Tennessee here saw a presumption of vindictiveness and followed it through. Now, there were a lot of facts here, and that's what it'll depend on. But in particular, you had Robert McGuire, the acting U.S. attorney, who brought the charges, and by everyone's admission, he was in communication with Todd Blanche's office, Deputy Attorney General, and a guy named Akash Singh, who seems to be the sort of enforcer of all the immigration stuff around the country. But, says the DOJ, yes, he kept them in the loop, but it was McGuire who actually made the charging decision for the crime, and he didn't follow orders from anyone. And that's essentially the fact question that is served up on this now appeal to the Fourth Circuit, where the U.S. says, look, McGuire had all your evidence of vindictiveness has to do with everyone back in Maine justice, but in fact it does. Part of the fight is when and whether you can consider the kind of real campaign that Bondi and others were waging to try to slam the door on Abrego Garcia, be it criminal. First they said he'll never come back. Then they said he'll come back and he'll face these charges, and and then we will deport him. And they also, to try to prove the charges, brought in someone higher, supposedly, who was a transporter of people, and that Abrego Garcia supposedly drove for. Very anomalous. You don't cooperate down in that way. You don't take a guy and try to make a case against someone who was the courier, as they're charging. But there was really huge focus on this. So on the one hand, you have the DOJ saying, McGuire, he was clean, and McGuire testified at an evidentiary hearing that he didn't take orders from anyone at DOJ. He did it himself. And it's a kind of the district court didn't exactly discredit that, but did credit all the stuff going on at Maine Justice, and what was an obvious campaign to try to make things as hard for Abrego Garcia as possible. All right, so this is the criminal charge. It's now been dismissed, and the DOJ has appealed that dismissal, and they're saying you had to look to McGuire, not to the people back at Maine Justice. It said that even if there is a presumption of vindictiveness, we rebutted it because McGuire came and explained why Abrego Garcia's stop that resulted in no charges from the states nevertheless was a federal crime and was a legitimate one. So it's a pretty damn factual appeal in the Fourth Circuit, and that should mean that fact-finding by the district court in the course of balancing the whole case as vindictive should get some deference. But there is this legal question about whether or not McGuire, as the DOJ claims, should be the sole focus. Now, we're talking about, over a year and a half since, or about a year and a half since this whole thing has happened. They still want to deport him, but on that side of things, you have a judge who found a flaw in their previous deportation orders. And so that is on hold. And it certainly seemed clear under Bondi, and you can bet it's going to be clear under Blanche. This is a guy they want to get. And why? Because he became the subject of a lot of focus and attention. And why is that? Because the DOJ messed up. But this is in the administrative proceedings. They've been trying to say, we won't send him where he wants to go. He says, I will willingly go to South America. They want him to go to South Sudan or someplace worse. They really want to just make an example of him, or just treat him miserably because he's become high profile, and that's only because of the DOJ screwing up. So certainly this is vindictive, as you'd use the term casually. They're going after him for all it's worth, both in the criminal side, now dismissed, but that's what's on appeal, and the civil side to try to deport him. And why is that? Because the spotlight was shown so brightly on him as a result of their own screw up. So there is this real, I think it's clear, kind of desire for treating him in a tough way, sending him somewhere that's kind of a hellhole for no reason of his own. And this is the latest step. So they're going to appeal the criminal case dismissal, and maybe they do the whole criminal case after if they're given the chance. But there's still what they're trying to do on the deportation side is have him go to a really nasty country, not Costa Rica, where he says, hey, I will go there. And maybe it's a whole kind of triangulated play where if they can convict him and put him in jail for a long time, he might say, all right, whatever, send me to, this where you want in Africa or the South Sudan, which is hardly even a nation. It's so unstable. But they continue to refuse the easy solution here, which is just send him to Costa Rica, where he says he'd be willing to go. In the meantime, the country's watching, the world is watching, and for that reason, they're fighting tooth and nail, including these criminal charges, which, again, if you were just talking about this while, around a dinner table, you would say, of course, that's why they did it. And the question is, can they argue successfully that nevertheless it doesn't fit the particular legal principles and requirements of vindictiveness? And while that's being decided, the Abrego Garcia saga continues, but he is at large. They tried to immediately put him in the detention center, and a judge said no. So in the meantime, he continues to live life in the United States, but they are bound and determined, and I'm sure Todd Blanche is as well, to send him off and to the worst place that they can find. Talk to you later. Thanks for watching Talking Feds. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe. And for a lot more content, all of my essays, ad-free podcasts, and weekly Ask Me Anything Q&A sessions, check out the Talking Feds Substack and please subscribe there as well. Talk to you later.